After some positive inflation data, the market has been on a tear, but did the short trading week stunt the S&P 500's movement upwards? Good evening, my fellow Riz Elite members and all of our subscribers here on YouTube. Welcome to our Elite webinar. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't done so already, you better be hitting that like and subscribe button for me. Click that bell icon right next to it so you get notified every time we upload a new webinar here on the channel. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the S&P 500. I know it's been 2 weeks since we've had a webinar. Really appreciate everybody hanging with us. I was doing some family stuff last weekend, and yeah, I just couldn't make it back. So I do apologize for that. But we have had a lot going on in the market since then. Obviously, the week prior, we did have a nice little breach below our ascending trend line here that we had for our support and resistance for the S&P 500. And it had really been hugging that line pretty well. Obviously, we did breach down below it here in April, bounced up off the 5,000 level, and it had been nothing but green skies ever after. But as you can see, we kind of came down here a couple weeks ago. We breached down, we hit 5250, and that was as low as she wanted to go. Now, yes, it did push down to right around 5200, but bounced up from there, and we have not seen anything come close to that yet. So a very nice push up here. Then last week, of course, on Wednesday, we had the inflation numbers come out slightly better than they expected, 0.1% better than they expected. Now, mind you, it is still above the 3% area where they want it to be. They want it to be about 2%, but we're still in that 3% range, but it wasn't as bad. So it's spectacular news. The market just went absolutely bonkers. And, we had this huge gap up in the S&P 500 last Wednesday, kind of closed the week flat on Friday. And then, of course, this week we were cut in half. We had Monday and Tuesday. Market was closed on Wednesday for Juneteenth, and then Thursday and Friday. So short trading weeks always, typically slow the market down a little bit because, the people on Wall Street are like, let's take a couple extra days off. No reason to do anything cool. We did have quite the move up on Monday, but then after that, it was pretty muted for the rest of the week. Tuesday, not too much going on. Wednesday, we had a bit of, or excuse me, Thursday, I should say, we had a bit of selling. And then Friday, basically nothing. I'm going to zoom in there. I mean, we barely had any movement at all on Friday. It was a very quiet day. So going into this week, I expect that we are going to see some movement with all of the institutional traders coming back and everything else going on the market this week. I think we're going to see some movement. Now, will that be to the upside or the downside? Well, that's anybody's guess at this point. But what I will say is I think we are going to see more market participation this week going forward because, again, everybody's going to be back. It's going to be a normal week. I suspect we could actually see a bit of a pullback towards this trend line. We'll see if that holds. And then we could see some push up here going in towards the end of the week. That's my guess. Again, it's just a guess, not financial advice. I'm not suggesting you take any trades based off of that. We could very well just see this thing go, continue to go upwards, or we could have a bit of a dip. But I think so far, based on what I'm seeing from the technicals here and, where we're at, obviously we're doing well. Now, I will point out here the RSI. We are in overbought territory on the S&P 500. So as you can see, we are very extended here from the moving average. We're very pushed away from the 50, and let's not even talk about the 200 simple moving average at this point. But yeah, we are extended, and we are in overbought territory. So do keep that in mind. If you do have positions that are in the green, you may want to consider locking in some profits. It's totally up to you, totally your choice. If you want to let your positions ride, feel free. But, the last thing you want is to get caught in a pullback. So just be aware of that, the fact that we are overbought, we are very extended here, and the market does feel rather bloated at this point. Well, what is bloating up that market? Let's take a look and find out what is running the show. And it feel like a broken record here because tech has come back screaming, mostly at the hands of NVIDIA for the most part. We'll take a look at that when we get done here with our other sectors. But yes, tech going absolutely nuts here over the last couple weeks since we were gone. Obviously, still the top performing, sectors, tech and communications, outperforming the S&P 500. But we are pretty close to ending quarter two here, and the S&P 500 is already up 15% on the year, represented by the SPY ETF. So, really a very big first 2 quarters for the year. A lot going on. And I know that Riz is, still feeling rather bearish so far, but yeah, S&P 500 just continues to roll. Now, that being said, let's take a look at what is underperforming, which is basically everything else. So basically, right now, we've got tech and communications propping up the market. We've got financials, utilities, consumer staples, energy, healthcare, consumer discretionary, all above the zero line, but underperforming the S&P 500, and then real estate still in the toilet, down below the zero line, currently sitting at negative 4.82% on the year. So real estate still hurting with everything going on, but we had consumer discretionary down here in the zero area for a while, but really starting to surge back up there. People, I guess, are feeling happy the fact that inflation is not as bad as they expected it to be. I'm sure you can sense the sarcasm in my voice there, because the simple fact of the matter is inflation is still a problem, and everybody just wants to be like, well, it's not as bad, but it's still bad. That's the problem. So, we'll see about interest rate cuts this year. I think the Fed is basically priced into doing it, but we'll talk about that here in a minute when we get to the bond yields. Let's take a look here at oil and gold. So oil here, we had this big sell-off, going in from about April, and it looks like we found the bottom here right around the 4th of June. So we really kind of found the bottom starting this month, and we have been pushing up ever since. So it looks like, let's see, where did we close on Friday? It looks like $80.73 per barrel for light crude. So a very nice recovery on that. If you're an elite, you were privy to a trade that we took that was able to capitalize on that. I took it personally. I was able to profit from it. So that's a good thing. Definitely pays to be in elite if you know what I'm talking about. So oil making a nice push up here going into the hotter summer months. Not too surprising. I think, is obviously there's a lot going on overseas and things like that, but I think for the most part, we're going to see oil kind of stick in this area, in this zone between 70 and about 85, probably for the rest of the summer. Now, I could be wrong. I will fully admit that I could be wrong, but we have breached this trend line. It is now resistance as opposed to support, unless we can get a big push here and break through that again. So we'll see how that goes, but oil making a very nice recovery here going into the end of the week. Gold still is just going crazy, but has slowed down a bit. Now, obviously, we had this huge parabolic move from about October of last year, and then we really started going parabolic here in February. Went absolutely nuts until about April, and we really have just been trading sideways ever since. Now, yes, there have been some pretty spiky days, but those are followed by some pretty significant down days where we come back here closer towards that $2,300 an ounce. That does seem to be providing some area of support right now for gold as we continue to consolidate, which is not surprising after a move like this. I mean, this type of a move in gold is, I don't want to say unprecedented, but pretty strange. And obviously, there's a lot of institutional buyers and things like that pushing this up. Central banks pushing this up, because this is not retail investing. I can tell you that right now. So 2,300 seems to be our current support level for gold. We'll see if that holds up in the near term, but right now it does seem to be holding up pretty well. Oops, give me just a second here. Go. All right, let's take a look at those bond yields and the US dollar here. So I alluded to this earlier when we were talking about the S&P 500 market sectors, that obviously right now the Fed is somewhat priced into interest rate cuts this year. The fact that the Canadians did it first definitely doesn't bode well for the Fed. But of course, we have to remember that Canadian inflation was not as bad as US inflation. So that is something to consider. Now, taking a look at the bond yields here, we had been in this nice little uptrend until right about here, when about the end of May. And we've been starting to kind of come down on the yields a little bit. We had this big run down here into the beginning of the month, a little bit of a recovery, and then a push back down to that area here, especially with the 2-year bonds. Yields currently sitting, let's see, where did we close on Friday? 4.736% on 2-year Treasury bonds. So, really kind of a bit of consolidating and a bit of downward momentum here on the bond yields. But I would say over this week, this kind of short trading week, really just trading flat for the most part. But that being said, like I said, the Fed is saying that there will be rate cuts this year. I will tell you, if they go back on that, that will not be good, but I don't think that they can. Being an election year and everything going on, if the Fed doesn't cut rates, that definitely bodes, not so well for the sitting president, whether you like him or not. This is a fairly common tactic used by every branch of the different parties here in the United States. So, no matter which side you sit on, everybody plays these economic games. So I think we should expect at least one rate cut before November. That's my prediction. Now, I'm not saying to take a bet on that or anything of that nature. Again, not financial advice, but that's my opinion. And we'll see if that happens or not. But I think that we will see it. I don't think the Fed can get away from it at this point, and we're kind of seeing those bond yields kind of start to come down a little bit in anticipation of that rate cut. Now, when that rate cut comes is a big question that everybody would love to know. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and keeping you aware of it, especially if you're an elite. But yeah, bond yields definitely starting to sink a little bit, getting a little bit heavier, and we'll see how that goes going into the rest of the week. Now, strength of the U.S. dollar looking pretty solid here from the beginning of June, being on a very nice uptrend on the dollar. Very big push here, going from about, let's see, about 104 to 105. I'm going to skip the decimals there. But yes, a very nice push here in the dollar. So dollar looking strong right now. Again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. In times of crisis and uncertainty, people will flock to the world reserve currency. Now, whether you are a fan of the US dollar or not, the truth is it is still the world reserve currency, whether you like that or not. And that is what people are pushing into. And you can see that strength coming up here and looking very, very solid as far as that's concerned. So no concern here over the dollar. Looking really good right now, and we're definitely holding in this zone between this 104 and this 106 and a half ish area for quite some time. Looks like about the middle of March we've been holding that pretty solid. So dollar looking strong, basically what I'm going to say. All right, let's take a look here at the critical dates in the market this week, and we've definitely got a couple coming up. First off, we've got GDP growth quarter on quarter. I want to highlight here this massive dump in GDP growth. Last reading was 3.4%, and they are expecting over a 3% drop on GDP. That's impressive. Now, that'll be, if that number comes in that low, I'll be interested to see how that affects the market. I don't think it's going to be a huge catalyst, not like some other things that we may see here, but definitely something to keep in mind, because that's not an insignificant drop over a 1 quarter period. So that'll be an interesting one on Tuesday or Thursday, excuse me. And then we've got one here on Friday. We got a couple things coming in on Friday. We've got the core PCE price index month on month. Not a huge one. Will be interesting to see, but personal income and personal spending, I think, is going to be a very good barometer of how the average consumer is feeling at this point. Obviously, inflation is still a problem, but the market seems to think that everything's cool as far as that's concerned, and that interest rate cuts are coming. But really, the personal spending numbers will be very interesting to see if that has increased or not, to see if people are being a little more loose with their wallets or still, kind of holding tight. So we're going to be keeping an eye on those. And yeah, this is on Monday, so we'll cover this on next week's webinar. All right, cool. Let's take a look at the earnings calendar for this week. Only a couple names to really talk about here. Really nothing on Monday. Let's be honest, really nothing here. FedEx, definitely a big name coming up after the close on Tuesday, something to keep an eye on. For travel for the upcoming year, Carnival Corporation, obviously Carnival Cruise Lines will be interesting to see how they report. They've been getting kind of beat down post-COVID, but not too surprising. Wednesday, we've got some names. We've got Paycheck. I've got a local office nearby where I'm at. We've got General Mills, and then Micron, going to be the big name after the close on Wednesday. BlackBerry, yeah. Do people still use BlackBerries? I would like to know. I haven't seen one in a long time. But yeah, Micron's the name here. If you're into jeans, Levi's, but not really going to move the market, I think Micron's going to be the bigger name here. Thursday, we've got a couple of names, nothing too amazing. Walgreens, people need their drugs. McCormick, we need spices, and Nikes because people need shoes. I personally don't wear Nikes. That's just a personal decision for me. Not my favorite company, but hey, some people may like it. Be aware if you are holding Nike that they are going to be reporting Thursday after the close and nothing on Friday. All clear. So those are kind of the bigger names to be keeping an eye on this week. If there's a name that you're looking at, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Let me know what you're watching. And for all of our folks here who are live on the webinar, would love to hear your questions and know what you're watching or what you want me to take a look at. But while you're going ahead and type that in, let's talk about the new big dog on the S&P 500, which would be NVIDIA. NVIDIA was at, I have to check and see if it is still the largest company on the S&P 500 in terms of market cap. May have dipped a little bit. Let's take a look here because we want to know. Okay, 3.11 trillion. And then let's take a look at Apple. Okay, so it looks like Apple regained its market cap lead, so that was good to know. But obviously, NVIDIA here has been going nuts. Post split, we kind of consolidated for a while until we got that news on the inflation data, and then NVIDIA just went crazy after that, for lack of a better term. So really, post split here, let me find it. It was on a Monday. There we go. For the first couple days, we really just kind of traded sideways, nothing really good. But then NVIDIA kind of went nuts. And then Thursday, look at that selling candle. After that huge gap up in the morning on NVIDIA, pushed up towards this 140 and a strong rejection. I mean, that is a strong rejection. And then Friday, just like the S&P 500, really not much movement, just a bunch of buying, selling, and then we ended pretty much flat on the day for NVIDIA. So obviously a lot going on here, a lot of hype surrounding this company, but yeah, I'll be very, very careful if you're holding this one. All right, I got a couple of questions that came in, and of course, don't worry, my friends, I will get to all of these. First and foremost, Mohith wants me to take a look at Mara. All right, assuming that is the correct one. All right, so Mara, Marathon Digital Holdings. We're basically trading sideways, and I'm not too jazzed about it. Is there some type of news that we got going on? Not that I'm seeing. Earnings aren't coming up for any time in a while. How earnings here? Pretty decent. Missed a bit on revenue there. I mean, I'm not super jazzed about this chart. I mean, really, it's just been trading sideways for, what, about a month and a half? Almost a full month now. So yeah, math on stream is hard, guys. Apologize for that. So, I mean, we made this bit of a run here post earnings. There's a sell-off, got a nice recovery, kind of came back up here over the 50, and it really has just been hugging that 50 moving average ever since. So, I mean, this isn't something that I'm super jazzed about, but I mean, this consolidation and this holding over the 50 is nice, but I feel like you're going to need some type of catalyst to get this moving back up. And your upside potential isn't that spectacular, I would say. I mean, obviously, there's room to go. If you wanted to, do something, maybe if you're looking to just capitalize on a $1 or $2 move or something like that, you could definitely consider that, but not something that I'm super excited about. Mohith, if there was something about this that you were interested in, please don't hesitate to post that up for me. Would appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of trading sideways and consolidating at this point. It gaps up and then it sells. I mean, we can see that. We gapped up here and we kind of sold off. And we gapped up here and we sold off into Friday. So, not super exciting, but definitely if it continues to hold this 50 and you do get some type of rebound, just a crypto play. Okay, fair enough. Okay, gotcha. So you're thinking about it for covered calls. Okay. Well, that's an interesting concept and definitely something you can do. Obviously, it seems like for the last month, we have not been able to get over 23. I mean, it looks like about 22.87 has been the max that we've been able to get to. I'm not sure what premiums would look like at that range. I don't have the options chain up in front of me, and it wouldn't matter since the market's closed. But yeah, that's an interesting play for covered calls. Not a terrible idea, honestly. Kind of like what you're saying, it gaps up and then it sells off. So I was kind of picking up what you were putting down just without you saying it. So I'm glad to see we're on the same page there, Mohith. That was awesome. So yeah, I mean, if you want to play covered calls in this, unless you get some catalyst, and I mean, if it's a crypto play. Let's just take a look at Bitcoin. What's it been doing? That's not the one that I want. Where's my Coinbase? There we go. Okay. It's about the same. Yeah, so I mean, crypto, Bitcoin's been kind of holding here. Doesn't seem like we want to break out over 74K, and we've been selling off pretty good. So we were kind of seeing that a little bit in Mara, but mostly just we saw that push up and then it kind of selling off. So yeah, I mean, as far as covered calls, could be a great way to lower your cost average or make some extra income. Definitely a play you can make. So not a bad idea. All right, Nikhil wants me to take a look at two personal fan favorites here. We've got ACN and AMD. Some big names there in the tech space. So ACN here post earnings had this beautiful gap up and then massive sell off. I will say from my personal account, I was actually in this prior to all of this. I got out before this sell off and I did not decide to get back in. Kind of bummed out because that would have been a nice move to capitalize on, but it just wasn't meant to be. Excuse me, for me. But yeah, a really big gap up here post earnings. It looks like they missed pretty. Well, I won't say bad, but they missed by about 3 cents. They're not terrible. I mean, I've seen worse earnings results than this, and revenue is pretty decent. So we definitely held the 50 here, which was nice. Definitely gives you a little bit of confidence. And the fact that we, saw this go green on Friday as opposed to the market, which actually went down, that definitely does give you some confidence here on ACN. Is there something else? Okay, so just some analysts they're slashing their forecast. Well, who cares? Says it's maintained at overweight by Morgan Stanley. Well, good for you, Morgan Stanley. We know who's short at least. So I mean, for me, I feel like this is definitely a little bit, I won't say like super confidence inspiring, but from a technical standpoint, you definitely like seeing this. We, came down and touched this 298.25 area that had been support before and had a nice bounce off of it, even though we had a lot of selling, a lot of profit taking after earnings here. And then on Friday, we held above the 50 very nicely, came down, literally touched it and bounced up and ended the day green. So I mean, if you're in this already, I don't know what your average is, if you are, but you can hold it if you want. Totally something you can do. If you're looking to get in, I would love to see a little bit more buying before I jumped in. But if this is a type of play that you like to make, definitely is showing some support here over the 300 area. So that is something to keep in mind. But it's not bad. I'll say it's not a terrible setup. Again, I just want to see some more upward momentum just to make sure that we actually are going to bounce here because we didn't make a higher high here at all, which isn't surprising on a day post earnings, but still, I'd say keep it on watch. Not necessarily to jump in just yet, but keep it on watch, see what it does and it may give you an option for a long play here soon. Let's take a look at AMD, everybody's second favorite chip manufacturer behind NVIDIA. And AMD looks like we are holding steady. We had this big sell-off here in March, really big dump off. And looks like we found the bottom here at kind of the beginning of May. Looks like right around 140, 150. So very nice bounce there, came back up, and we are just hugging this 50 moving average and really not going anywhere. We are very range bound on AMD. And, I would just say with semis in general right now, I'd be very, very careful. That's really my advice with AMD. I mean, listen, I'm running an AMD processor in this computer right now that I'm running this webinar on. So I can't say that I'm not a fan of the company. All right. They put out great chips, great processors. I've been very happy with it and have nothing bad to say about AMD. Looks like earnings was pretty decent. Looks like we had a beat on EPS, but a miss on revenue by a paltry 3.9 million, which I'm sure that you can find in the couch cushion somewhere at AMD headquarters. But this from a technical standpoint here, where we're at right now, we're really just trading sideways and we can't pick what we want to do. Now, I would say in general, we are still in a downtrend here on AMD. Once we, really make a nice break out of that downtrend, sorry, I'm having a hard time here. There we go. I would like to see this make a bit more of a vertical push, but if you're looking to get in early and you feel confident in your play, you definitely could take a starter position if you wanted. Excuse me. It is a bit risky to take it here again because we are still in this downtrend. We really haven't broken out of it officially. I would just be very careful with semis right now. Again, I kind of feel like it's a little bit frothy, especially with everything going on with Nvidia right now, because that's just the big boy of the market. What's our market cap here? Oh, 260 billion. Anybody less than a trillion is not worth it these days. Of course, I'm joking. AMD, a great company, and I would definitely have no problem holding this for longer. But in the short term, if you're looking for a swing trade, I mean, it's not really giving us any signals right now, either direction. And the fact that we're still in a downtrend is not exactly confidence inspiring. But we do have earnings coming up here. It looks like in July, July 24th. It looks like when our excuse me, the 30th, apologies. So the end of July, that would be 2024. That was what they were telling us. So it looks like the end of July, we are going to have earnings on AMD. That can definitely do. Oh yeah, I mean you can definitely get premium for AMD if you want to do covered calls. That's a $16,000 proposition to hold 100 shares right now. So just be careful with that. Nvidia goes down and AMD goes up. I mean a little bit. I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. Let me pull NVIDIA back up here just so we have that fresh in our mind. Huge dip on NVIDIA on Thursday, and AMD definitely saw some buying pressure, so that was nice. If you want to, continue to play that concept, that is something you could consider. I'm not sure that's something I would bank a lot of money on, but that's just me personally and my ideas. But yeah, I would just like to see a bit more of a breach of this downtrend. I mean, we've seen AMD be in downtrends before, right? This is a great example. We finally pushed through it hard here, and we had this nice run up. Obviously, AMD has been through a lot in the past. If you've been playing it for some time, like some of us have in Elite, but we get into these long downtrends and then a nice push, and then another downtrend, and then a push. And so right now we're in a downtrend and we're waiting for the push. At least that's the way I'm seeing it right now. So let's see where this goes. Again, if you want to play the covered call game, Mohith was just saying that they have decent premium. So if you're holding a bunch of shares and you don't mind making some premium on that, good idea. But hey, if not, if you're looking for an entry, I think once we bust out of this downtrend, I think it'll be a better option for you for a long play. But definitely something to keep on your radar and keep on your watch list for sure. AMD, a great company, like I said. Hey, no problem, Nikhil. Really appreciate it. And of course, I appreciate everybody here on the live webinar. Do we have any other questions that you'd like me to go over? I saw a couple people came in late. I don't want you to feel like you've missed out and you don't get to ask your questions, because if you came here live, I do want to make sure you get taken care of, because we appreciate all of our elite members here who make the time to come out to webinar live. I really appreciate each and every one of you. So I'll give you just a couple seconds. If you've got a question, feel free to throw it in there. But yeah, definitely some names to keep an eye on this week. Not so much in the terms of earnings, but just a lot going on, honestly. I mean, we got to see what's going to happen with this NVIDIA stuff. I mean, look how extended we are. Now, I'll say that we've gone from, overbought to back into the channel here for RSI, but still NVIDIA feels a bit too high here, honestly. I feel like they're running a bit too high on the hog. That's a little bit too parabolic for me. My 2 cents, I ain't going to short this thing, but I sure ain't taking it long right here. I'll just put it that way. I know that's kind of Riz's mantra right now. It's like, I'm not going to short it, but I ain't going to take it long either. So definitely be careful if you want to play chip manufacturers and GPU manufacturers like AMD, NVIDIA. I know Micron got beat down pretty hard here going into earnings, so that's an interesting option. I'm not talking about options contracts, but definitely something to keep an eye on with that little sell-off there on Thursday, kind of mirroring what NVIDIA did. So keep an eye on that this week as well if you're something you want to watch. And then, of course, we've always got the big names. We've got Apple had this monumental move when they mentioned OpenAI or something like that. And, now we're starting to come back down because the hype is dying off. So just be careful with these types of plays because, yes, you get these big moves, but they also typically retrace pretty hard once the hype dies down. So just be aware of that as we go forward into this first full trading week. And then after that, we've got 4th of July coming up here, which is a holiday here in the United States. So we'll have markets closed on not next week, the week after next. So definitely something to be aware of going into a holiday week. So again, want to thank all of our elite members for coming out live. A special thanks to all of you who are on the replay crowd watching this on YouTube. We'll see you in the market on Monday.